Welcome to the Pioneer Agronomy Update, and what a beautiful day it is. We are out at one of the impact plots with Pioneer in the Euclid, Minnesota area. Zach Fore is with us, product agronomist. Zach, again, beautiful day. Tell me about the impact plots themselves. Educate me.
Okay, so what we got in the background here is an impact plot. This is late stage experimental testing. We do our breeding out of the Moorhead Research Station. We have a breeding location there. The breeders, they generate thousands of hybrids, tens of thousands of hybrids actually. And the challenge in this business is narrowing it down as quickly as you can to what the winners are. And so the breeders do testing across the region, multiple locations across the region for several years. And then the winners from that testing is what I get to see in these impact plots. So this is late stage experimental testing. Out at this plot, we've got about 240 plots. They're 8 rows by 40 feet, 35 feet, and we harvest the middle 4 rows, getting rid of that edge effect. It's a very high quality way of obtaining data. Pick a uniform spot in the field. Of the 240 plots, there's probably about 40 of those that are border, and then we get data plots in the middle would be about 200 different plots. Of those 200, there's some replication, so probably about maybe 60 hybrids tested in one location. I've got 20 of these across the region, and in corn we do impact testing for 2 years with experimentals before we introduce them as commercial hybrids, and then there's a slow ramp up period after that, just to try and make sure we know all we need to know about those hybrids before we get them out on farmers' fields.
Obviously, doing the same thing in soybeans, but a little quicker turnaround, I would guess, in soybeans.
Yeah, we do the same thing in soybeans, though you're right. Instead of 2 years of impact testing, we do 1 year. Soybeans are just more consistent in terms of being able to predict how they're going to perform in the field. And then there's a pretty fast ramp up of new soybeans. And in Pioneer's case, of course, we're really excited about the new class of Enlist varieties. Incorporating a new trait technology into genetics takes some time. And so this is really the first year that we've got the latest, greatest Pioneer genetics in an Enlist technology. We're testing an impact. We'll have some volume of those that we'll sell for 2024, and then by 2025 and 2026, we're going to have a largely new replaced lineup of varieties in soybeans. And Don, our lineup right now is really good. So it's going to get even better the next couple of years.
It's exciting to see how this corn is stretched out, Zach, with the heat units that we've had here. Obviously, we had a little moisture stress probably early, but give us an idea, where are we sitting with this corn crop?
Yeah, we are 300 GDUs ahead of normal. You know, our planting dates were a little bit late, mid-late May, but it has been so warm. Um, in my history, 19 years with Pioneer, we have never been this far ahead in GDUs. 300 GDUs is equivalent to about 12 maturity days. So a 92-day hybrid right now is at the same stage as an 80 normally on the average. So heat is good for corn as long as you got that moisture. And like you say, Don, we're short a little bit in some places. Corn water use is not great at the beginning. So the main thing at the beginning is getting a good even stand. That you can't fix that if that doesn't happen. So get a good even stand, and then enough moisture to keep it going. Well, now we got plants here that are probably in about the V12 stage. They're using a quarter-inch of water a day. They're using a lot of water. That water use will increase a little bit through pollination and then start to decrease again. We'll get up to a third of an inch a day of water use during that pollination and early period after that. And then as they start to fill, the water use will go down. So this rain we got now was really timely. And looking at development of the corn plants, I've pulled some corn plants here so we can look at. So about V11 or so, the the number of rows around the cob is determined really early, about V5. And at this stage, we're through the development of how long the potential cob can be, ear can be. So the number of ovules is fixed by this time. And after this, we got to get them pollinated, and then it's filling. And the most critical time for any stress in corn is really from now, a little bit later than now, when we get to pollination through that early fill period. That's when we can tolerate some stress earlier than that. It doesn't impact yield all that much. But if you get severe stress during that pollination and fill period, that's when we get the biggest yield loss. And it's similar on soybeans. You know, early on we can take some stress. After we get pod formation and pod fill, especially pod fill in soybeans, that's when we need the moisture. And here you can see we've got ear shoots at every node, and that's the way corn is. It'll shoot an ear shoot at every node. They're pretty small right now, but again, the number of ovules is already determined at this time. And what happens is these ones on the bottom will slough off, and it'll be this top ear node that develops. Occasionally we get two, but usually we don't. We get one. We want one. We want enough population, one good ear per plant, and fill that ear out. That's what gives us optimal yields.
So that dry stuff early, that really hasn't impacted yield. How about this moisture we got now? How much help was that?
Really, really timely. You know, this, depending on how much you got, for a lot of areas, this will carry us for, 2 to 3 weeks. We'll need some more rain before the year's out, but it really, really timely right now. And in a lot of areas, it might take us through pollination, which is really a key thing. Then the moisture we need after that will help us to get fill. So we get good pollination. You get the number of potential kernels. You get that number up. And then after that, if we get stress after that, that's where we see that nosing back. And if we get enough moisture, we'll fill those out too. And right now in most of our region, we're, in terms of heat and development, we're in really, really good shape for some high yields. Some places that had questionable soil moisture real early, if the stand wasn't great, you can't fix that. But in most areas, we look really, really good.
Different type of question. We've had these Canadian wildfires and the smoke that we've had in the air. Does that have any impact on these crops?
Yeah, it's a common question, and it has been nasty some days here. And we've actually looked at that, and there are two negative things that happen. One is reduced solar radiation, and increased ozone are the two things that are deleterious for crop production. There's actually one good thing that happens, and that's you get more diffusion of sunlight, and so that gets a more uniform sunlight onto the plant. The net effect is probably slightly negative. Probably not a big deal in terms of the effect on crops, but slightly negative. And by far, way more important is the effect on humans. I mean, that air quality and ozone and particulates are certainly bad for us. Corn is a C4 plant. Its photosynthesis is different. A C4 plant will keep, one of the magic things about corn is it keeps using sunlight all the way up to a very high sunlight level. And so corn is potentially affected more than soybeans or wheat or C3 plants, but even corn is probably not very much affected by smoke.
Good deal. Well, again, beautiful looking crop here. We look forward to continuing these conversations as the season goes on.
Going to be fun to watch this crop develop. And of course, for me, seeing the new hybrids and how they perform is always really exciting.
Zach Fore, again, product agronomist with Pioneer. We're at Euclid, Minnesota, the Impact Plot on the Red River Farm Network.